Everyone, welcome. I'll give you all a minute to join. For everyone who did just pop in, let us know where you're joining us from today in the chat. I always like to see where in the world you all are. I'm up in Canada, and Jasmin, you said you're in Chicago. Michelle, you're in Georgia, is that correct?
I am, yes.
And then Lindsey, Ohio, right?
Cleveland, yep.
Okay. Let us know where you're coming from in the chat. Oh, the chat's disabled. Oh no, let me fix that. Let's see if that worked. There we go. Okay. We've got someone from Washington. Oh, California, is it raining today? Michigan, Tennessee. Oh, Taylor. Hi, Taylor. Taylor used to work at Mydoma with us. She said she's here for Lindsey. We've got New York, Atlanta, Portland. Okay, all over the states. This is great. New Jersey, Missouri. Welcome, everyone. Got a good amount of people on here now, so I will start our intros here. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the Work of Design Live. Today's webinar is titled How Successful Designers Wrap Up the Year and Plan Ahead, brought to you by Studio Designer. So my name is Rebecca, and I'm on the marketing team at Studio, and I actually joined from Mydoma. So we do have two lovely designers here with us today, one who uses Studio and then one who uses Mydoma. So we've got great representation from all of the softwares. So today's webinar brings together these three incredible thought leaders in the design industry. We're going to be helping you kind of learn how to wrap up your year with confidence and plan for a successful 2025. So we're thrilled to be joined by Michele Williams. She's the owner and founder of Scarlet Thread Consulting and Matrique Solutions. We have Lindsey Putzier, owner and principal designer at Lindsey Putzier Design Studio, and Jasmin Reese, owner and principal designer at Jasmin Reese Interiors. So thank you all for joining us. And together, they're going to share their unique perspectives, proven strategies, and expert insights to help you reflect on your successes this year and help you set up your business for growth in the new year. So let's dive into the conversation. Quick reminder that we will have time for a Q&A at the end. So please make sure to put any questions that you have in the Q&A box. So let's jump into this by asking Michele. So as a consultant, what are some of the top challenges that you've seen designers face when planning for the new year?
You know, that's an amazing question. And what I would tell you is I'm seeing a couple of things because that's kind of where we are right now. I'm seeing an overwhelm because they're trying to get it all done or they're planning. And then that overwhelm kind of leads to missing like the fun of the end of this year, or it's shutting them down because there's so much going on they can't think. So if we were to look at just the overwhelm piece, honestly, the first answer is the same for both. I am encouraging them to slow down. On my private coaching call yesterday with my group, one of the things I encouraged them to do was to get out a sheet of paper, Rebecca, and just start writing down what are the highlights of this year? What have I learned? Where did I grow? What challenged me? What are the things that I want to take into the next year? And what are the things that I want to leave behind? So that's really important. And it kind of slows down either that fast pace of not even feeling like we can celebrate this year, but it also makes us aware And that's what's important, is being very much in that moment. And then the other is they don't know what to plan and what to look at. So the challenge comes into, first is more of that mindset speed challenge. And then the second is, okay, I've got some time. Now what do I look at? And I would say if you don't know what to look at, start by looking at the three main parts of a business. And we teach this in my Aim with Intent, but it's people, process, and profits. So, what are all the things that I need to look at around people? That could be teammates, it could be vendors, it could be clients, any processes, whether they are with our software or just internal client processes, and then money. We always want to look for habits of money. And if you can just do some strategizing around those couple of things, it's going to make a big difference.
I love that. I love how you highlighted taking a look at your wins, because sometimes we forget. We're always looking at where do we go next? What's the next stage for growth? But we forget to take a look back at what are the great things that we did this year, and how much did the team grow, and how are we enjoying ourselves in our job. And yeah, I really, really like that. And the people, processes, and profits, I think that's a really great way to break things down and make it a little bit more digestible. So thank you for that. Jasmin and Lindsey, is there a specific challenge that you faced this year? And how were you able to overcome it? Or maybe you're still overcoming it going into 2025. So Jasmin, I'll let you take it away.
Okay. We're in our 10th year, so our 10-year anniversary. And a couple years ago, we're a group of 9, and it was really exciting. And it was just, we had a lot of great projects, but it was also a lot of stress for me. So this year we've actually, we kind of scaled back. We're a team of 5 now, and, everybody works really hard. I feel like everybody's paid better, and our hours are shorter. So we have a shorter week, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5. I'm sorry, everybody's got different hours, but 8 to 4 for some people, 9 to 6 for some people, and then Fridays everybody's off at 1. So just kind of like to Michelle's point, slowing down a little bit, and just kind of keeping everybody in a happy place for getting out what they want from their work environment. So that was one of my challenges.
That's great. It sounds like the work environment is maybe a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. And do you feel that yourself? Do you feel like you're able to kind of breathe a little bit?
Absolutely. So I know Fridays, all summer I got to leave and play tennis, whereas most Fridays I was still, scrambling here till 5 or 6 o'clock. So, you work harder during the week, but, 1 o'clock on Friday, it's like, we're done. We just decided to keep that for forever. We tried it for the summer and it worked really well. So now we're just sticking to it. And it's been great for everybody to take early, they can do their laundry, or they can, go out of town earlier. It's been working really nice.
That's great. That's really nice that you're able to do that. Lindsey, what kind of challenges did you face this year in your business?
So it's funny that Jasmin had challenges with kind of scaling back because she was too big, and I had challenges because I was too small and I needed to scale up. So at the beginning of the year, I had an administrative assistant that was a virtual assistant, and then I had a local assistant slash runner for errands and things like that. And then by June, the local girl quit, and my VA had to go on personal leave. So I went from 3 people down to just me doing everything for a couple months. That was really rough, and I do not like it. And I don't know how I used to do that, but I guess my business was a lot smaller. So since then, though, I've scaled up, and now I have a senior designer with 20 years of experience who I brought on the team, and my VA is back, and I love that. And I also hired a local project coordinator slash runner who's really good at managing trades and following up and just keeping on top of everything. So my challenge was going from just not enough people to then having them. And this was the first year I actually hired a W-2 as well. So I had to go through figuring that process out. And for anyone who's ever done it, it is not simple. There's so many things between workers' comp, unemployment, payroll, insurance. There's so many things you have to do. And if you do it wrong, you can get severely fined. So that was a huge challenge. And now that I've done it, though, I feel like I could hire 50 more people if I could afford it, and it would be easy, but that first one is a huge hump. And it was actually one of the reasons why I didn't hire someone before, because I just was afraid of the process. So I'm glad I kind of faced my fear and got through that. And for anyone who's really afraid of it, it is worth it. It's totally worth it, but it was a lot.
I mean, congratulations. That's a big milestone to hire people in 1 year.
Thanks.
That's great. Okay, so we kind of have a good balance of challenges and experiences this past year. That's great. So let's kind of chat about some strategies for year-end success. So Michele, you're coming from a consulting background and you've probably seen hundreds of designers' businesses over the years. What kind of financial or operational strategies do you recommend for closing out the year on a really strong note?
So I think that the way we close out the year on a strong note is by focusing on closing out each month at the time that it's happening. In other words, if we wait till the end of the year, and I've done this and it does not work back in my early days, I would wait to the end of the year and then try to reconcile and clean everything up for the year. And the older I get, to be honest, I can't sometimes remember what I did last month. So I'm certainly not going to remember every finite detail that's going on in the business. And designers, you guys are handling so many details all the time. You know, the ability to remember is decreased based on the amount of information and the amount of time that passes. So the way that we end the year well is by being accountable to ending each month well. So it's making sure that we're reconciling all of our bank accounts. We're reconciling all of our credit card accounts. Believe it or not, those are considered bank accounts and need to be reconciled properly. Making sure we know where things go, clearing up any subscriptions or payments. Honestly, doing a scrub of your expenses so that you can recognize, was there fraud that came in that we missed? You know, sometimes those fraud amounts can be so small that we don't recognize them until they stack up over time. Is there anything that we need to cancel for the next year? We're not using it. Is there any piece of software that we need to increase because maybe it's come out with some new features and functionality and we want to take advantage of that? It is looking at our bank account, understanding how much cash we have available to make decisions. It's sitting down and planning for the next year based on the information, the empirical data that we have for this year, to say, how do I want to spend my money next year with the lessons that I've learned, right? To really be in that power position financially. And, you know, I'll say the word budget, which some people might freak out about, but honestly, a budget is a decision in advance of how you're going to spend your money. You're just telling the money in advance, here's where it's going to go. It's the same thing that we do with our clients' budgets, right? We look at $100,000 budget. We look at all the things we need to accomplish and we start prioritizing where does the money go first. It's the same thing in our business. And if we don't do that, then sometimes our money ends up places we weren't expecting it to go. So we're not making powerful owner type decisions. We're making more reactive decisions. And then the last thing is just to ask tough questions. Do I want a repeat of this year financially? And, you know, to both Jasmin and Lindsey's points, either adding somebody or removing somebody, or adding technology or removing it, or adding in anything or removing anything, even if it's a photo shoot, there is a dollar amount tied to every single thing we do in business. And when we can step back and recognize the cost of our choices, then we can put together a financial plan that allows us to make the choices because we've already made them, and then allows us to be able to get the work to execute on that plan. So just being very careful and strategic and not just letting money flow through. It's getting really, it's having an intimate relationship with money and how it is managed and how it flows in our company. I mean, honestly, I think that's the key to success for just about any company. Because if you understand how money flows and you understand how money works and you can manage it and you can plan on it, you can make any decision in the business.
That's very true. Are there any key KPIs that you look at the end of the year that relate to those people, processes, and profits?
Yeah, great question. So I mean, there's a whole list of things and it could vary by company, but I'll tell you some basics. We're always going to be checking total revenue. So how much money did we sell? I'm going to be checking how much of that was product sales and how much of that was consulting or time billing or design sales. So how much was service and how much was product? Then I'm going to be taking my cost of goods number and I'm going to be comparing it to product sales so I can see what my average markup is and I can see what my margins are with just product income. And then I'm going to look at it overall as a company to see what my averaged, if you will, numbers are. I'm then going to be looking at my rent as a percentage of my gross profit to see if I'm house poor or not, just like we see other people that buy outside their means. I'm going to make sure my company's not doing that. I'm going to be looking at my payroll cost. Lindsey gets to do that this year. I'm going to be looking at the payroll cost as a percentage of gross profit, because to Jasmine's point, when your payroll percentage becomes too high of a percentage of gross profit, it reduces the amount of money you can spend to do other things. So I like to keep it at 30% or below of gross profit from most companies. Certainly there are some outliers, so don't freak out if yours is different, but it's getting in tune. What is my marketing percentage of gross profit? But really looking at how are these big groupings of things done in my company, and are those decisions the one that will support me? And then lastly, I'm going to be looking at my net profit as a percentage of gross profit and of revenue. And then I'm going to be looking at my tax percentages. And a whole lot more, but I'll stop there.
Those are some good key points. Amazing. Thank you. So Lindsey and Jasmin, kind of reflecting and planning for next year. I know client feedback can be a really great reflection of some of the things that need to be either improved upon or maybe just are really good successes in your business and things to expand even more of in 2025. So I'll point the question to you, Lindsey. How do you use client feedback and trends in the industry to kind of guide how you're planning for next year?
So for client feedback, we've gotten really good feedback about my project coordinator's ability to wrangle trades. We don't hire trades directly. Our clients hire them. We're not general contractors. However, our clients are busy people. So for them to have to then follow up and make sure they're coming for estimates and make sure they're getting there, and it's a lot for people to manage. And the reason they hire us is because they don't have a lot of time. So she is able to really follow up and wrangle, and she's just really good at that. So we are starting to kind of offer more of that service that I would have loved to have offered before. I was a project manager in a previous life, IT, but still, but I didn't have the time. So now that we have that time to really offer that service and stay on top of things, it's kind of like I hate to call it professional babysitting, but that's kind of what it is, in a lot of ways. So I'm looking forward to kind of leveraging that and offering that as a different service. And we've actually just gotten a large project that involves a lot of that kind of management with an upholsterer and a painter and a wallpaper guy and, that kind of stuff. So that's really fun. And it's direct service income. To Michelle's point, it's not product income, it's service income. So there's not a cost of goods sold associated with that. There's not having to pay the sales taxes on that. There's not any of that. So it's pretty nice to have that as a service offering. And as far as trends go, in my area, we're seeing kind of a resurgence back to more traditional design, or at least that's what a lot of my clients are looking for. A little more detail, a lot more color. And I've always been a colorful designer, so that's kind of my thing anyway, but we're seeing more of that. So when I went to High Point in fall of 2024, I was specifically looking for some case good vendors that had more of that traditional style, updated traditional style. So that kind of plays into what we're opening new accounts, and we're trying to meet minimums and things like that to leverage that going forward.
Okay, amazing. So you're offering a new service and then also expanding on your vendors. That's great. Jasmin, how about you? How are you using client feedback and trends to guide for 2025?
I'll piggyback on what Lindsey said. We have a project manager on our team also, and we also have an office manager that deals with just products and sales and does that. So our business is in two parts. One is the design fee, and that's all the artwork that's involved at the beginning, which involves measuring and putting everything in the CAD software and meeting with the client and doing the presentation. And then the design fee is done. They pay the second half of the design fee, and then they transition over to going hourly. And then we bill like lawyers. So we bill in 15-minute increments. So all of the items that are needed, all the time that's needed to get to the finish line and the execution of the project is all billed hourly. And I tell the client what I think it's going to be, but, every job is different. We're not magicians. We don't know exactly, but, I'll say this might take 25 hours for this one room to finish for, meeting the mill worker and maybe, meeting the electrician, but this is what it should take, and clients are really happy to have a recap at the end of the month to see exactly what we did. And they saw the dollar, assigned to the exact designer that did it, and they pay it right away. I'm not wrangling clients to pay. It's very clearly laid out. So, yeah.
Okay, amazing. Is that something that was new that you implemented this year?
Yeah, and so we use Harvest. I know that Studio Designer does have a time billing part of it, but we use Harvest because it's just easy to, like, when you're parking, you can put your parking expenses as you pull up, and you can just pull it up on your phone really easily. But our sales have tripled, honestly, for time billing because of the amount of time that we're capturing. Even picking up the phone with a contractor, we're on the phone 15 minutes with them. We're going to bill that to the client, so.
Okay. So really staying on top of those line items.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. So how do you each use software to track your business performance and identify areas for improvement? So some of those KPIs that Michele just mentioned, are there specific ones that you look at for your business? Any that you might kind of calculate on a monthly basis, a yearly basis? What does that look like when you're reconciling? And do you work with a bookkeeper? Kind of explain that process to me.
Should I go first?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I work with my bookkeeper every month for 15 minutes. We just have a quick call, and we just take a look and see, okay, what's going to be due in sales tax, what's going to be due with your Amex. And I do that myself weekly, but I do talk to my bookkeeper once a month about that. And we also have a budget. So in Studio Webware, you can go to reports, and then you can pull up your income, and you can actually pre-assign a budget in there. And so it'll have furniture, how much you think you'll do in furniture that year, how much you want to do in custom furniture. And we track it every month to see if we're kind of, hitting the goals per respective area. And that has been amazing. So it's not a surprise when, $20,000 comes out of the account for sales tax, you're not like worried about it. It's all very clearly laid out. So you can really use your tools in Studio Designer for all the reports, but you really have to look at it and stay on top of it.
I like that. I like that you set aside the 15 minutes a month because if you don't have that time set aside, you might miss out on actually taking a look, going into those reports and analyzing things really quickly. So I think that's a really great business practice that I'd probably advise all designers to do, to set some time aside in your calendar on a monthly basis.
And for me, Mydoma doesn't have the finance all baked in like Studio Designer does. So I use QuickBooks. I've used QuickBooks for my entire business, 8 years now, I guess. And same thing, I run reports. Every Monday, I do not meet with clients on Mondays. Monday is my in-office day. I do my, all kinds of different stuff related to owning and running a business. So 20% of my time is non-billable. 20% of my time, I am just working on the business. And that is one of the main reasons I think I've been able to grow as much as I have, because I did dedicate that time. And that is actually something Michele taught me years ago. And I'm grateful for that. You have to work on the business, not just in the business. And once a month, I do my reconciliations on one of those Mondays, whatever the first Monday is. And I'm looking at the percentage of sales. I'm looking at the percentage of service versus product. And then I'm looking to see in QuickBooks, you can add in expenses that haven't actually incurred yet, and it will still affect your, it'll let you see the true profit for the year. Because, with cost of goods sold, sometimes we don't pay until things are shipped, or I pay 50% up front and 50% later. And I can't tell then if I'm going to have like this huge amount of expenses coming out unless I've actually put those in QuickBooks. So just keeping account of the things that haven't even happened yet, even if it's just an estimate, like for shipping, I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost to ship 3 sofas from North Carolina to my receiver, but I can estimate based on past data that I have that it's probably going to be around $400, $450. So I'll just even add that in as a placeholder. And that's where those reconciliations come in, because every month then I can go in and actually true up that placeholder or delete it if it's a duplicate, if I've actually already entered the real expense. So it's really important to keep on top of that so you actually understand whether or not you're making a profit in your business.
Awesome. I love that idea of taking the Monday to work on your business, not in your business. That's a great takeaway. And you said that since you've been doing that, you've seen a lot of growth.
Yes, because I've been able to focus on things like blog posts and marketing and networking and figuring out working with vendors and just getting my name out there, getting our company name out there. It's just important to have that time. It's a time that I use to button up processes. It's time, my VA can attest to this. If I don't get the weekly updates done, if I don't review what she's done, they don't get sent out in a timely manner. It's just the time that I'm taking to say, okay, what's gone on the last week? What do I need to assign someone with? You know, I might be assigning other people tasks on Monday so that we just make sure we're on top of everything.
Yeah, definitely. So really being intentional about your time. I love that.
My turn. I am so excited to hear that, Lindsey. I remember that conversation sitting on a sofa.
Yep.
Years ago. Yep. You know, it's interesting. We like to call it really doing business development. I think that was the conversation that we were having. And when we are thinking about this, like I've realized the people that really succeed in this industry are people that own their business and the business offers design. But those that are designers that don't want to own their business, they're flashes. They come in, they go out, they come in, they go out. So the key to longevity and sustainability and profitability is that ownership component. And that ownership component takes work. You know, you mentioned 20%. We sometimes even call it taking a strategic pause, which is where we're thinking outside of just the business development that we're doing, but having a pause in the day-to-day so that we can think strategically for the future. So that's another thing to consider adding in if you've not done that. So business development and then strategic pause. And then we lovingly like to call it Money Mondays or Financial Fridays. So however you choose to look at it, it's being, to your point, Rebecca, being very intentional and calendaring it. Some of the things that I like to have my clients look at and that we also look at them with them is we're looking at those financial reports and doing the exact things that you all described. So I won't say that again, but exactly what both of you described. We are looking at it in accrual accounting, which Lindsey, you kind of alluded to by putting everything in there, even if it hasn't been paid. And we also like to look at it in cash accounting. Let me tell you why we like to look at it in both. Because if we're only looking at things in accrual, but our bank account is being managed by cash, then we can run into a problem. I usually say the truth of your business is somewhere between the two, because accrual only works if you put everything in. And rarely are people going to the extent that you are, Lindsey, where they are estimating these things way in advance and putting them into the system. The more we do that, the more accrual will work properly for you. But if we're not, then we're going to find ourselves accrual based with making a whole lot of money, but cash strapped because we don't have any. And so being able to differentiate and parse out the difference there, knowing where we make our money, do we make it on product or service? Jasmin, just thinking about as you're moving into the future, I thought about it when you said we started recognizing all those 15-minute increments and how much money we made. We went from 9 to 5. Like, you've made some big changes to your company. My guess is your profitability has gone up, not just because you reduced people and thereby, you know, that money. But when you can start to account for all the time, it is a resource just like money. So as much as we talk about looking at bank accounts, looking at reconciliation reports, looking at financial reports. My gosh, the more that we can track our time, whether we're doing flat rate or not, but really doing that deep dive to know what is it costing me in people resources and in time to get a project done. Because when you understand that deeply, what it takes, we can estimate better, we can charge better, and we can truly get the value and worth of the business and the work that you and your teams are doing. So that made me super excited to hear that for you.
Great. Yeah, some really, really great takeaways on time and the way that you value yourself. It's great. Okay, so now let's move along and talk about 2025, the big topic. How are we going to grow for 2025? So Michele, how do you recommend that designers set realistic but still set ambitious goals for 2025?
Yeah, we've always heard the term BHAG. Maybe not everybody's heard it, but it's big, hairy, audacious goal. And we were taught all the way back in the day to create these BHAGs, this, in other words, something that you can grow into, something that's big, that kind of scares you a little bit. If all of our goals are so small and so attainable that we look at them and we're just like, yeah, no worries, I know I'm going to get it all done, then we probably aren't setting them big enough. I'm still a proponent of the SMART framework, which is, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. But here's what I'll tell you, Rebecca. What I'm seeing is people making goals or setting goals, but they're not tying the goal to anything. Goals aren't meant to live in isolation. Goals are meant to get us from where we are to where we want to go. It would be like just picking up a map and deciding just to go anywhere without recognizing that I'm in Atlanta and I'm trying to get to LA. The LA is the strategy, right? It is the endpoint, the vision, if you will, of where I'm trying to go. The strategy is what is the best road to take to get there. And then the goals are, what day do I want to be at what location along the strategy line to get me to the vision of LA? And so if we've not done that big strategic work, then setting goals can feel like they're not based or tied to anything. And then as the year goes on and it gets hard, those goals fall by the wayside because we're not tied to them. So some of the first work, and we're going to be teaching this in our side in January, but it's really identifying the vision and the strategy so that when you set these big goals that are pushing you a little bit outside of your comfort zone, that you are jazzed about them, that you are excited. Because if we're excited and it's something that we really, really want, even when the waters get rough, even when the tide turns, we're going to keep swimming to try to get there. And so to me, the way to set goals that are beneficial are they align with the big vision of the company. They match the strategy that we're trying to build. And we are excited about them. My gosh, I don't want to build a goal that makes me feel nauseous. I want to build one that makes me feel like I want to wake up and go to work every day. So that's the way to do it and actually enjoy it.
I love that. And I think the way that you described goals and the strategy really makes sense.
Yeah.
Jasmin, what are some of your goals for 2025 and how are you setting up your business to achieve them?
One of the goals, last year we moved into a new location and we're sharing our space with our upholsterer. So now we're, 90% of our sofas and chairs and beds are all custom made. And so that was a goal in the making for a couple of years. And, it's really exciting to see things in the back and, clients love to come and do a sit test. So that was a goal. And we're just going to keep trying to just find poetic artisans that we can partner with and try to make as much as we can. That was a big goal. The other goal has been, more tied to this call, which is money clarity. So a few months ago, I just decided to make little buckets for money in my account. So I have 3 checking accounts and 1 savings account. One checking account is just for my Amex bill. One is just for my savings. One is for sales tax, Amex, the main one, and then just a check, just a savings. And those 4 accounts has saved me from so many sleepless nights. You can always go into Studio, print out the report and say, okay, you need X amount for your sales tax next month. You need X amount for your Amex bill, whatever. You can do that, but then you keep thinking, oh my gosh, I have to print the report. It's always on your mind as a business owner. You're always thinking, how much money do I really have? So now, as soon as I get paid for anything, It just takes like literally 3 minutes. I just move that money right away into sales tax checking, move it right away into the Amex checking. And so I don't have to worry about it. It's just, the sales tax just comes and goes and I don't even know. My bookkeeper just does it and it's just gone. It's just out of my mind. So I want to have even more money clarity. I want to know how much I can pay my team. I want to know how much I could do marketing at any second. I don't want to have to wait till the end of the week or, it's going to freak me out all weekend. I just want to know at any second. So that's my goal, is to have just really good money clarity.
I love that. That's
So,
Lindsey, what
Jasmin,
are
can I ask a question? Jasmin, have you read the book Profit First?
no, but I haven't read the whole book. I've read a couple paragraphs from it, and that's actually what inspired me. I read a couple paragraphs from that. Yeah, it's just
So
all the money
Profit
buckets. Yeah.
Profit First is a money management system that allows you to move your money into buckets. It's kind of like, like I guess the old Dave Ramsey or some of the different apps they have out there that you can do that. And I've been doing it since 2015. I'm certified in Profit First for the interior design industry. So when you started talking about that, I was like, she's doing a Profit First, a type of that, whether you knew it or not. So if you haven't listened to it, you should listen to it on Audible because he's hysterical.
Okay, I will. Yeah, I read only a few paragraphs, but I was on a plane. I was like, you know what? That makes so much sense. It's so simple. You just have your little checking accounts. You just move it right then and there.
Right. And the same way that we were talking about earlier about if we're only doing things in accrual or only doing it in cash, that actually helps bridge that gap between, because studio runs only in accrual. So if studio is only accrual and you've got to keep up with your cash, that's an easy way for you to go ahead and allocate it for where it needs to be so that you don't have to worry about we're pulling out sales tax, but I was going to use that to pay a different bill. So it kind of helps you not commingle those funds. So I was doing a happy dance while you were talking about it.
I'm so glad. Yeah, it's a life changer. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
That's great. It's great to relieve that stress and know that you're covered.
And kind of along those same lines, this year, at the beginning of the year, I opened a business savings account that actually has interest, has a 5% interest rate. So if you guys don't have a business savings account that's actually allowing you to grow your money, consider getting one. It's still cash, so it's still easy to take the money out, put the money back in, on like a day. So it doesn't take very long. You can access it if you need it, but at least my money now is actually growing. The business money is growing, and it's separate from my personal savings, even though I'm a disregarded entity. But it's separate, so it's kind of nice because I know how much is in there that we can use for things like marketing or photo shoots or client gifts at the end of the year. I sent Christmas cards this year, and it's not cheap to get them all labeled and mailed and everything, but I knew I had the money because I knew it was in the savings for kind of those kind of special things. Kind of the ancillary things that aren't mandatory. I don't remember what that's called. Michelle, what are those called?
The ancillary things that are not mandatory.
Yeah, like it's not recurring. It's not the fixed expenses. It's the other stuff.
Got you. Yeah, not non-fixed expenses, right?
Yes, that.
Variable expenses.
Variable. Thank you. Yes, that's more of my variable expense account for things that I could say, you know what, we're a little cash strapped right now. I'm not going to do this right now. We'll put a little more in there, and once I have the money, then I can pull it out. But it's growing now in there, just sitting there.
Yeah, high yield savings accounts or high yield checking. I mean, it is a big game changer, especially when we're holding huge amounts of money like that, to be able to move it over there. And, you can make hundreds of dollars compared to $10.
Oh, compared to 4 cents.
Yeah.
In my other account.
Or them charging you to have your money in the bank. So you might check it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And it's nice to know that you can employ some of those marketing activities because you see that you've got the money in your account. So I bet that feels really good.
You don't have to say who, but is that a local bank or a national bank that you're using?
It's a national one for the 5% savings. No, my local one has since offered 5% savings, my business that I do most of my business accounting through, but it was the one that we have our personal stuff with that was like, we can open you up a business one and it's 5%. I'm like, yes, sold.
Yeah, I've used a Marcus account. I've used Oh gosh, Fidelity accounts. I honestly talked to my financial wealth advisor, and he has helped me open up every single account to just slide the money in. And I can slide it in and slide it out, just like my day-to-day is in Wells Fargo. I have that pulled over into another account. And but you can even Google high yield savings. Somebody put in the chat or something, Nerd Wallet. So there are lots of ways to get it. But they're not expensive and they're not difficult to set up.
Awesome. That's great.
And they're FDIC insured, so make sure you do that.
For sure. Jumping back to you, Michelle, what role have you seen software play in supporting designers in planning and operations, really?
Okay, so I'm going to say this. I have some design friends of a certain age, which would be my age and older, where technology wasn't huge for us, right? We didn't have the benefit of technology that many of the designers have today. And so I've seen many of them do things a bit more manually. And I get it because that's what they've been doing, but it takes so much time to do everything so manually these days. And so the more that we can embrace technology, I think that's where it's going to be. I don't want to shame anybody. I know sometimes people start, maybe somebody listening, they start all their accounting in an Excel spreadsheet or, something like that. I did that too. The thing is that that's not going to grow with you from a true accounting perspective. It can get you started to kind of prove the point that you can do a business. But at the end of the day, to be able to make some of the decisions like Jasmin and Lindsey are speaking about, like being able to say, do I have funds that I can allocate towards an additional photo shoot? Or should I hire now? Should I hire this person? Should I outsource it? Like all of those decisions come because we know and understand our numbers, or should come because we know and understand our numbers enough that we are taking a calculated risk based on empirical data. And when we're putting things into a spreadsheet by ourselves, it is very difficult unless we know how to go in and code in Excel to make that happen. And so I am a big recommender of QuickBooks Online for those that are using Mydoma, and Studio already has the accounting built in. I also think that there are sometimes additional things that we need outside of that. But first and foremost, we should be using the financial software that we are invested in, regardless of which one it is. Our goal is to use it to maximum capacity. What we don't want to do is go buy another software system that just duplicates everything in the first software system, because that doesn't make any sense. It's double use of time, double use data entry, money. Like it is just a resource hog. So I never recommend doing that. But I do recommend sometimes that there are additional software that we add on that makes things easier. And so really just recognizing that software it's an, what's the word I want to say? It is a resource like a person. And so if I were to sit down and say, what do I expect the software to do? What do I need it to do? Even if you're evaluating, let's say you're evaluating Studio or Mydoma, what is it that I need it to do? What is its job? What am I willing to pay per month to have it do that job? What is it saving me in people fees to have that software? What am I willing to invest in time, effort, energy, and money to learn that software? And so when you can start to do that, you can start to eliminate. I come from a software background, as Lindsey does, and we can tell you that when you interact with software, you get a gut feeling of this feels intuitive. I think like this thinks. I can work like this works. Or you're going to get that feeling of this feels disjointed. It doesn't capture data the way I capture data. You're going to know. So the more you try it, the better it's going to be. And the last thing I would say is whenever you choose software, whether it is a Mydoma or Studio, since those are the two we're here with today, invest yourself in learning the best process to make that software work. Because a lot of times we blame things about not working. It's really us not using the process properly. And so when we can create a process that allows us to know how to use it from beginning to end, nomenclature, creating a strategy before we go to implementation. The worst thing we can do is go straight to implementation. So the more that we can strategize on how we're going to use it, how we're going to set it up, what is our naming convention going to be, When are we going to do it on Financial Fridays or Money Mondays, whatever we do? The more that we can create this tight process and hold to the process, then we can trust the numbers and the results on the other side. What I see over and over is people that are half getting in and half getting out of software. And when you do that, you only have half the data in, so you're getting half the answers at the end. And so just whatever you commit to it and let it do its job. That's what I would say about software.
Amazing. I think you captured it completely. And actually, we had a designer ask, what are those evaluating questions so we can write them down?
Yeah. Well, I think it's, what do I want the software to do? Like what is it that I'm trying to get it to solve?
Yeah, what's your goal?
What's the problem that I have, right?
Mhm.
Then I'm going to ask myself, I'll be honest, like many of you might know, I built a software program separate. In that software program, one of the things I thought about is designers want things to be beautiful. And I said to my developers over and over and over, make it beautiful, make it beautiful. I want it clean, don't clutter the space. And as developers, they just wanted to keep putting stuff on the screen. And I kept saying, make it beautiful, make it clean, make it intuitive, strip it out if it's not needed. And it's so funny because when people look at it, they talk about the beauty of it. Well, the way that I knew that is every designer I know that has tried all of the different project management tools out there talk about which ones are beautiful and which ones are not. And they are using that to help make a decision. So if you know yourself enough to know that the beauty of what you interact with daily as software matters, then that needs to be one of those things that you check. I'm going to make sure that it feels intuitive to me. Are things on the screen the way that I would think they need to be? I'm going to look at their support. Do they have a Q&A section? Do they have videos? Do they have webinars? Do they have onboarding help? Do they have support once I'm in there? Do they respond to a chat? How quickly do they respond to an email? Do they take suggestions for future enhancements? Do they ask how we use the software at different stages in our business and in the life cycle of our firm? Because the way Lindsey might use it with one or two people, if they were on the same thing, could be very different than Jasmin would with 9. It could be different if you're doing residential or commercial or service only or product and service. I'm going to ask them, are the financials, or I'm going to look to see, does it include financials or does it not? Does that matter to me? Do I have 15 years in QuickBooks Online and I don't want to get off of that? Or am I willing to make a change? What I'm not going to do is say, can I run 2 things that have 2 accounting programs and try to dump them on top of each other? That is that duplication of effort. I'm going to ask, is there anybody that can help me manage the process around that software platform? Because if not, I need to now look at, can I hire that person? Or what does it mean with regards to which one I choose? And then what is the time? What is the learning curve? How difficult is it? Do I think my team is ready to take on moving into a new thing? Because if you're in one and you've got to move to another, there's got to be a whole process built just even internally in your own business to determine, how am I going to move over? When am we moving over? Are we going mid-project, only project? What time do we overlap the two? Are we in the busy season or a quiet season that we can do that? So timing matters on all of it. And then certainly, what is the cost for what we're getting? So I know that was a lot. We could probably do a whole webinar on how to choose a software platform, but those are just some of the things to get you started.
That's great. Those are really important questions. Especially I want to highlight the implementation, because sometimes if you're running a busy design firm, there's a high chance you don't have time to actually sit down and learn every in and out and how the processes within the software align with your business. So ensuring that the software that you choose has paid implementation a lot of the times is very important. And Mydoma and Studio both offer that paid implementation, and there's different levels as well to the amount of time and resources put into the implementation, and so I highly recommend looking into that. Jasmin, how or what features, if any, are there that you'd like to share about Studio Designer that kind of have been particularly helpful for your growth?
Yeah, so when you're creating an item, let's say you're building a sofa, let's say you're physically building a sofa, and then you need to get different fabrics for the trim and everything, you can actually put in the codes section of the product when your CFA, your cutting for approval arrived, when the quote was approved. You can put tracking in the system. And then we take that information and we also use Asana, which is a project management software. We put those dates and we plug them into the Asana software. So our project managers can see how the job will shake out and how like one sofa, even though it might have, 6 different components to it, how the timing of that is going to work with maybe some custom wallpaper being made, or the millwork being done. So we can actually create timelines a lot easier with the code section, and not just be so reactive to everything. We can plan our rollouts and our installs instead of just, doing everything piecemeal. So.
Okay, I like that. And I bet that helps to instill confidence in the client as well, because you're able to give them a more, I guess, a better deadline that kind of aligns with reality. So that's great.
Yeah.
Lindsey, how about you in terms of being a Mydoma user?
So there's a few things. So you can do something similar in Mydoma. So I had that as one, but I'm not going to go into it, but you can do the same thing. But I also use time tracking a ton. I just started doing that this year. I used to have Excel spreadsheets for each of my clients where I would track my time because I was the only one billing them. But now everyone on the team is responsible for knowing whether their work is billable or not billable. And we have a huge process sheet for that. So everyone should know. And if they don't, they can ask me. But that has helped us make sure we are billing for every single minute that we're actually able to bill for. That's been huge. And you can use the time tracker on the app too. It's just as good as online. So that's been really helpful because we can, go to a client's house and then like in the car on the way back, my senior designer can be adding both of our time in. I also use the proposal feature, which I really, really like. When you add all the products in, you can then create a proposal and then send it to the client for approval. And with the proposal section, it's really nice because if you don't want to line item your proposal, you don't have to. You can actually attach a document that has everything listed from the product section, but doesn't include all the prices. And then the proposal will just have the top level line item price, like the top level price, which has helped us a lot because sometimes, as we know, pillows are really expensive or the hardware for draperies might be really expensive and clients will just balk at the cost and then be like, I don't want it. And it ruins the whole look. And the bottom line is their aggregate price is fine for them because we've discussed their budget before and generally we're right in line with it. So their total price is fine, but if they knew the pillows were $500, they wouldn't buy them. So that's kind of a way to use the proposal feature so that we make sure they're actually getting the best design possible within their budget and they're not focusing on the line item costs for these things that honestly don't matter because we've hit their budget overall.
Yeah, I've actually heard that a lot lately from designers is just giving your clients the bulk price has done wonders for having clients approve the design and not have any issues with it. So I love that you use that.
Can I add one more thing too? I just realized. So Studio Designer this year, they changed the way that clients can pay. So before, clients would pay a credit card fee and then you'd have to, at the end of the month, you just have the fees come out of your account. Now, the client can choose between doing an ACH, which takes, it's $0. And but you have to let them know it could take 10 business days. Usually it's only like 5 or 6, but it could take as long as 10 business days. Or they can pay the credit card fee, but they pay it. So they just pay the extra fee at that time. And that has been wonderful because you don't have to worry about all the credit card fees coming out of your account at the end of the month. So that's been a new thing for Studio, which I'm kind of excited about.
Oh, good. That's great. Yeah, that's a big plus for sure, is being able to pass that credit card fee along to the client. Good. I'm glad that you're getting use out of that. Amazing. Okay, well, I'm going to kind of wrap up the discussion part of the session and jump into some questions. So a reminder to everyone, I'll be looking at the Q&A box here. So the first question from Alice is, what are your favorite Studio Designer reports to run every month for tracking of the business? And Jasmin, I think this one probably best applies to you.
I run the income with budget. So we, like I said, my bookkeeper and I, we figure out a budget and we just look at it every month together. And so that's when I look at the most. And she looks at a lot of the reports for me, just like the sales tax and the vendor, what we owe vendors and what clients owe us. But the one I print out every month is the income budget.
Okay, amazing. We have a question from Jackie. What would the #1 piece of advice you would give a designer to start turning a true profit and growing their business? Michele, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, then the #1 piece of advice I would say, outside of the mindset shift of I'm going to own this, is to take stock of where you are. Because the truth of the matter is we can't fix what we don't know is broken, right? Or we can't get something different than what we've got unless we are really looking at it. Because I work with companies who'll say, I've been making the same thing for the last 3 years, and maybe it's a great amount, but they're like, come on, can I get to that next place? So the truth is the #1 thing is to really understand where you are, because we can then decide this is where you are. These are the decisions that got you here. Where do you want to go? What are the decisions that'll get you there? So before you can like lay out a plan to go do anything, it's really understanding where you are. And let me tell you what that means. That means knowing how much money you have in the bank. That means knowing how much money is promised to go out. That means knowing how you make money in your company, whether it's product or service. That means knowing what your markups and pricing looks like, knowing what your margins look like, knowing how much you pay for things. So being able for us to see all the expenses that are in your company, then we can say, here's what it looked like. Like, for example, if we took Jasmin's with 9 employees or 9 people on the team, this is what it looked like. If she said, I want to get to 5, we've got to first know what 9 looks like. Then we can figure out if we're going to scale up or scale down to get there. Same for Lindsey. So the #1 is know where you are.
Amazing. I think that's a great first step. We have a question. When doing a fixed design fee, do you also track your hours? And if a client goes over the scope, do you charge the fixed fee or charge hourly for the additionals? So do either of you ever do fixed design fee? Do you just charge hourly?
I used to do fixed design fee because everyone was raving about it and I hate it. I do hourly with a retainer, and it's a true retainer. It is applied to the end of the project. The last usually 10-ish hours, 20, sometimes if it's a bigger project. So, but when I was doing fixed design fees, I was still tracking my hours. And I realized I was, kind of going over, and for me, it's more stressful to try and do a fixed design fee because I feel like the clients were also taking their sweet time, getting back to me, or they wanted to look at 15 options. And yes, I have it in my contract that there's only 1 revision. And yes, I have it in my contract that if you go over X amount of hours, it's then going to be hourly, but they're not going to want to pay for that. They're not going to want to pay for that additional, and they're going to blame it on you. And it just, for me personally, it didn't work. I know it works for some people. Jasmin, do you do fixed?
I do. I do a hybrid. So
Yeah.
The beginning is the artwork, so it's the meeting. We talk about budgets, we talk about aesthetics, we measure, we put everything in our software, all the pretty stuff. Then we meet for the presentation with all the quotes and all the proposals ready to go. And then the design fee is done. Like they pay the second half of that, and we just transition directly over to hourly for office administration, project management. If there's any more design work that needs to be done, that's billed hourly as well. And it's pretty clean. And I also track the time for the design fee portion. So the client doesn't get that report at the end of the month. I use that to, understand how to bill for future projects. But if we're over, I usually eat that. But we're usually pretty close for the design fees. Same thing. We give them exactly how many meetings there's going to be, exactly how many revisions there would be. And yeah, it's been working out really well for us to do the hybrid.
If I can make a comment, anytime, if you're doing a flat fee, first of all, that flat fee should be built and based on how much time it's going to take you and the hourly rate that you're trying to maintain for your company. So it was never supposed to be built outside of an understanding of how much time went into it, because time is the resource. And so if we then are building it based on 20 hours, but it's continually taking us 40 hours, we're losing that income. And there is no way to know that unless we are keeping up with time. We also won't be able to tell if our employees are learning and moving and designing at the rate that we need them to if we're not keeping up with it. Because if it's taking them 10 hours to do something that I can get somebody else to do in 2, I either might have a learning gap with that employee, or that employee is playing around, or they don't have the ability to do what I'm asking them to do and they're too slow. So you are hand tying yourself from making profitability decisions and employee decisions if you do not keep up with the time on a project. It also can lead you to feeling burnout, overwhelmed, and not knowing how to schedule your time, and then becoming resentful to your client because you don't know how much they're paying for, and it feels like you're doing too much. So there is, to me, other than just not taking the time to do it, there is zero benefit to not keeping up with time in a flat rate project.
For sure, I agree. And actually at Mydoma, we do have a flat fee calculator, and I'll put it in the chat here, and it just helps to guide. You do obviously have to know how long your design process takes, but it helps to guide you. And then also helps you add a buffer in there as well of 15%. So you're ensuring that if you do go over a little bit, you're still covered and you're still profitable. So I'll add that to the chat. Okay, we're coming up on time here, so I'm going to quickly put a poll in the Zoom just to ask a few extra questions. If anyone's interested in learning more about Studio Designer or Mydoma, some of the features that we talked about today, we'd love to chat with you, learn more about your business. So please do answer that poll. And then I'm just going to close it out here. So let me pull up my notes again. So thank you all for joining us today for the Work of Design Live. I hope that this session provided you with some great and valuable insights, and specifically some actionable strategies to wrap up 2024 and go into 2025 with confidence. Some of the things that we talked about, Michele highlighted some main points for reviewing your year, taking a look at people, processes, and profits, making sure to slow down, highlight those wins from the past year, and moving along to 2025 with smart goals and strategies with a true path to lead you there. And so I hope that that you've gathered some really great insights today. So thank you so much, Michele, Lindsey, and Jasmin. Your insights have been invaluable. I know it's always great to see how other designers are running their businesses. And I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. So thank you. I look forward to seeing everyone at future events, and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.